The California desert holds a plethora of history and secrets, many of which have become forgotten and lost to time. And it is exactly that type of thing that I was looking for one night on Google Earth when I came across this, what appeared to be a sizable pit mine nestled in this small mountain range in the middle of the desert. I wasn't sure if I'd stumbled upon what was an active mine, as that's not that unusual, but after scanning the surrounding valley, I was pretty convinced that nobody had worked in this area in a long time. And the few things that were left behind were intriguing enough that I decided I had to visit this area in person and find out what happened here. And as it turns out, it's an all too familiar Californian tale of gold rush boom and bust. Hey guys, welcome back to Aired Oddities. I think I've got a pretty interesting site for us to see. As you saw, I was looking around on Google Earth, found what looked to be a pit mine, and after looking at the area a little bit more, determined that it looked pretty abandoned and that there'd be some cool things for us to explore. And I've just made it to the mouth of this valley. You can kind of see the pit mine from here and some ruins. So we're gonna get hiking and see what we can find. So right off the bat, like just a couple hundred feet from where I parked, we've got this pit, which has quite a few rusted old cans thrown in it. And then it looks like we've got some ruins of some sort of building. Not much of it left. You can still see some good stacking over there, but a lot of it's washed out and fallen apart. So I started researching this area a little bit before heading out here, and as it turns out, what we're looking at is a lot of schist, some gneiss, and a lot of Mesozoic granite. That's kind of on the far east side of this range, and the valley that we're currently standing in is actually the western end of a fault. What really brought people to this area, of course, was gold, which was at some places 8 feet thick and mined for 1,000 feet into the ground, which is really crazy to think about. That's a lot of gold. Looks like we've got some more remnants of a structure right away. This one held together a little bit better than the last one. Looks like this might have been the front of a building, and there's possibly a room in the building. More cans. Wow, this one is held together pretty well. Pretty small room. Wonder if it would have just been storage for something. Looks like it might be like an old sardines can. Now, there's also quite a bit of pyrite, silver, copper, and quartz in these mountains, but gold was really what everyone was after. This is actually one of the earliest gold mines in California. These mountains are actually named after the discovery of gold here. As it goes, there was, I believe, a Spanish camp in the area, and 2 boys from the camp had headed out into the mountains to either look for, I think, some horses that had gotten loose, or for some reason they were in the mountains. And when they came back to camp, they had their shirts full of gold. And so the Cargo Muchacho Mountains comes from Spanish, which is like roughly loaded boy, because they were loaded up with gold. And that was kind of the beginning of gold mining in these mountains. Oh, this is interesting. I just decided to walk up this little side canyon just to see if I could find anything. And would you look at that? Wow. Mine number 1, I suppose. That gets real dark real fast. Try and see again with my phone. Yeah, that just keeps going back. Now, I am not someone who's going to be going in each of these mines and exploring. That's just not the kind of risk I'm willing to take, especially solo, but I'll show you the entrances. And I will also caution anyone who decides they might want to come here and check them out. I have no clue how deep this one goes. Like I said, some of these mines followed veins 1,000 feet in, so I don't think this one probably goes that deep just because of the size of this mountain. But honestly, who knows? So these were one of the more prominent things that I could see from Google Earth. And I believe these are the old cyanide leaching vats. So cyanide leach mining really kind of changed the game for gold mining because it allowed you to extract a lot more gold from all the ore that you were processing. And essentially what they would do is they'd crush up the ore, mix it with cyanide, and the cyanide would then dissolve the gold from the ore, and then they would pass it through zinc shavings where the gold would basically reform and re-solidify, and that allowed them to get essentially every atom of gold out of the ore that they could, as opposed to mining out the chunks that you could from a gold vein. So this really, I think, bolstered gold mining, and it allowed them to mine for a bit longer than they otherwise would have, and also allowed them to get more product and make more money, essentially. Looks like there used to be one here that's been pretty destroyed. This one's definitely falling apart. But these ones on this end are a little more held together. These ones are looking like they'll only last so much longer. All just full of sediment now too. Alright, let's keep moving. Looks like we've got some stuff on top of these little mounds. This whole spot has definitely been graded. Looks like we've got foundation for something over here. Really hard to imagine what would have been right here, but definitely looks like either this depression was used or this leveled hilltop was used. I mean, obviously up here we've got some foundation, so definitely was at some point. I can see a wall over there standing up, but I want to make my way down and kind of loop around up this valley because I know there's some more stuff over that way too. Well, I suppose while we're hiking, we can get into the history of this mining town. This is the ghost town Tumco, although it was originally the town of Hedges, which I think, as I mentioned, was one of the earliest gold mining towns in California. Now, Hedges was completely abandoned by 1910, and after that it was bought by the United Mining Company, which is where the name Tumco comes from. It's just the acronym of the United Mining Company. But I think by 1911 they also abandoned it because it just was not profitable. I think there was a little bit of a mix of like bad management, and I think they grew too fast for what they were actually producing and pretty quickly ran out of money to keep the town and the mine going. So it operated on and off through the 1940s, but pretty much by the 40s it was completely abandoned and was left pretty much how we see it today. I'm sure there's probably a little bit more to it, but over time some things have been lost, washed away, torn down, but there's still quite a bit left, quite a few foundations, the cyanide leaching vats, and of course the actual mines themselves. Now going back to the origin story of the name of these mountains, gold was discovered here in the 1800s, and it's originally usually a lot of small, just Mexican settlers running individual mining camps throughout the mountains. But in 1877, the Pacific Railroad completed its line from Yuma, Arizona to Los Angeles, and the Oglebay Rail Station in the area was created, which pretty much opened this area up to a lot of people, and you get this gold rush. And as with most of these ghost towns, as soon as the mining boom ended, so did the towns. Now, at the height of this town, I believe when it was Hedges, they had at least 500 people here, but I've also seen 1,000 quoted and even up to 3,000 quoted. But I mean, that's a lot of people to be living in such a desolate, arid place. But it was enough people for the town to build up its own infrastructure. They had their own school, a church, a library, a bar, several businesses, and also 2 cemeteries, which I think we'll be able to see. They're still here as well. And again, at its height, it was producing $1,000 worth of gold a day, which I'm assuming is $1,000 in 1890 money, which right now would be about $35,000. Which, I mean, that's pretty hefty. I would definitely like to be in on that. So I'm assuming this is an old mine. Looks like it's been filled in, and then it's also got this not the most effective barbed wire fence around it, but given that it is one of the only fenced off things I've seen here, and they've piled a lot of stuff in, I think this might have been one of their mine entrances. Well, it looks like we've got another one as well. It's been pretty filled in. Yeah, so odd that that one's fenced, but these other ones are not. I don't know if you can pick it up, but a lot of these rocks are also green on their surface, and it doesn't really look quite like a copper green, but I'm really not sure what it is that is causing them to be this green. Oh, this is interesting. It's just got this circular slab up here. So from up here, I can see a couple other foundations, and then all the way up there, there's a retaining wall. Almost looks kind of like a dam built up there. And then you can start to see some of the pit mines over here. So let's check out some of these foundations first. Here's our first one. Again, kind of surprisingly well preserved. Still fairly small. Come over this way to these ones. Some other scrap metal that's not rusted out. And this is tall. It's like 3.5 feet maybe high. See, this side's collapsed, but this whole corner is still pretty tall. Another small little room. This is a bigger building. Wow. Now you can see this was one room. And you've got this little doorway into this other room. Wow. Imagine building something like this by hand. All this stone. scrap metal. Actually quite a bit in this one. Looks like another bit of foundation there. So just kind of this whole row of buildings at the foot of these mountains right before you get to the big open pit mines. And just right here at the end of all those buildings, we've got another mine entrance. Ah, this one's graded off. For reference. I just cannot imagine working out here and working in these mines. In case you can't tell, today it is actually a different day than the day you just saw in the last clip. I was having some technical difficulties and had to stop filming, so I've come back on a different day, but it's alright. I've pretty much come back to right where we were last and just gonna pick up from here. So let's get into it. So we're kind of getting to the meat of the mining operation, I think. There's another mine entrance there, some other graded holes, and the beginning of some pits, it looks like. Got our first sizable pit. Oh, whoa. Check that out. So it looks like they started up here, but concentrated down there. But it's obviously large enough and dangerous enough to be graded off like that. I already know that there's going to be so many that I don't see, which is fine because I kind of want to prioritize the coolest stuff. But they really are just everywhere. This one was actually quite inviting. One of these days I'll have to get like a pretty high-powered flashlight to start bringing along with me so that I can light up these entrances. But it's very conveniently door-shaped. We're pretty much at the foot of the giant pit mine that I saw on Google Earth that brought me here in the first place. This operation was big enough that at like its peak they had at least 100 stamp mills running here, so I'm kind of wondering if this was the area that maybe the stamp mills were in, or I don't know if they'd be closer to the cyanide leaching vats. But wow, this is huge. All the veins in this wall. And then it looks like there's another pit over there. Honestly, pretty amazing how much of a mountain you can just dig up and move. Base of some type of equipment, I'm assuming. Wow, this is huge. size reference once again. It was 5 feet tall. Just all sorts of rubble and ruins. Hard to really imagine what any of this would have been at the time. We got this big cable running up there. Old bricks. That's pretty cool to see. These are huge. You can see the sand dunes away at the horizon and create like really cool, it's not optical illusion, but it just looks strange. Just look at how worn these bricks are. So smooth around the edges. Well, someone recently had a bit of time on their hands. Wow, I have no idea what this would have been. Now, I've pretty much shared the extent of my knowledge when it comes to the mining history and the mining process. And so with that said, I have no idea what this would have been. So if anyone with a better knowledge of mining or mining history has any clue as to what any of this would have been, please let me know down in the comments, because I'm very curious of what this was. I don't even know if I can hazard a guess. Like, my brain is going to maybe like some way of sorting ore, but I genuinely have no clue. It's a very unique structure, so hopefully someone will know what this is and can explain down in the comments. Check this out. This little mushroom is growing right here. I've never really seen a mushroom grow out in the desert. That is so strange. So this probably has to be the most intact structure left, other than maybe like the cyanide vats, which are off over there. But as for buildings, this is definitely the last one standing. I would imagine over here this is where more of the actual like town infrastructure would have been, because you know, we're a lot farther from the mining operations. So I feel like it would make more sense to put town buildings over here. This wall's getting ready to go. Probably be the first one. Maybe that one too. Curious how many more years this will hold up before it's just piles of rubble like all the other buildings. Looks like there's another caged pit up over there. Yeah, I think this is the future of that other building eventually. This one wall is putting up quite a fight to stay up. Wow. These are at least 6 foot tall walls. This one was a little shorter. They look pretty good. What is this? Now, if these are all modern, this would be a big pile of litter, but since they are most likely over 50 years old, they're historic artifacts and they are protected by the law. In fact, pretty much everything here is most likely under protection of the Federal Archaeological Resources Protection Act, so if you plan on coming out here to visit, you know, try and leave everything as it is so people in the future can come and enjoy it just as we are. So when I first looked at this from Google Earth, I wasn't really sure what I was looking at, but after doing a little more research, I figured out that it was one of the town's cemeteries. And I think I was actually able to find the other cemetery using Google Earth as well, and that's a little bit down the road, so I'll drive there once I'm done hiking around here. I think this cemetery is referred to as the West Neighborhood Cemetery, which makes sense because it is on pretty much the western edge of the whole settlement. And this cemetery is supposedly for Protestants, whereas the other cemetery is supposedly for Catholics. Now, I have also seen some statements in my research that this is not what the cemetery used to look like, and that there was either pretty much no one here or just a few piles here, and it seems as though some people may have come and just created more piles to give it a look of being a larger cemetery. Obviously, I can't really speak on the validity to that. I don't know. I wasn't here decades ago to see what it did look like, but I also would not be surprised if that was the behavior of some people to come out here and create more. Either way, you want to be respectful if you come visit here. And as I already mentioned, like, this site is federally protected. So I've made it back to my car, so let's go drive and check out the other cemetery, and that'll be it for this video, so let's get on with it. Alright, so we are at the other cemetery, which I believe this is supposed to be the Catholic one. So this one is actually barriered off, which is interesting. Definitely larger than the other one. It's too bad that none of them have name markers or anything. Alright, well, that is pretty much it for this video. I know it's ending on a little bit of a somber note, but you could probably spend days hiking around out here, exploring every little side canyon and finding all the different mine entrances. I have a feeling this video is already going to be really long, so I was trying to keep it to the most interesting parts, but if you guys want me to come back and explore some more, maybe try and go a little deeper into the mountains or around the mines, let me know, and that's probably something I could do. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider leaving a like, and if you want to join me on more adventures like this, consider subscribing. Check out some of my other videos where I've done similar things, and have a good rest of your day. Bye.